Building a passive income stream through dividend investing can be quite lucrative, especially if you own dividend growth stocks or ETFs. Today, we're going to dive into 3 dividend ETFs that can make you millions by the time that you retire, as long as you stay consistent and drip those dividends. For each ETF, we will be looking at 5 main metrics: the dividend yield, the dividend growth, historical performance, diversification, and how much you would need to own in order to make $2,500 per month. Before we take a look at this first ETF, I want to throw it to you guys. I'm curious if you own any dividend stocks or ETFs, so let me know which ones are your favorite down in the comments. I might end up adding them to my portfolio. The first dividend ETF we'll be looking at is none other than Charles Schwab's SCHD. SCHD is an absolute powerhouse when it comes to dividend investing, and we're going to get into that in just a moment. But if we look at the fund highlights, I think we're going to see something that's really interesting. So they are a straightforward, low-cost fund offering potential tax efficiency. The fund can serve as a core part of your portfolio or complement a well-diversified portfolio. And then my favorite is that they invest in stocks selected for fundamental strength relative to their peers based on financial ratios. Because SCHD handpicks the stocks that they're able to put into their ETF, they've had some very impressive statistics, such as a 3.46% dividend yield, and over the last 5 years, the average dividend growth rate has been 11.29%, which is just insane. Along with some very impressive dividend growth, we've also seen some very impressive price appreciation from SCHD as well. As you can see, over the last 5 years, it's up 55.41%, and over the last 365 days, it is still up over 21.5%, which is very impressive considering it is paying out that 3.46% dividend yield. CHD is very well diversified, and as you can see right here, there's 17% in financials, 15% in healthcare. Consumer staples makes up just under 15%. And if you want to look at a few of the largest holdings, you'll see Home Depot, Bristol Myers, BlackRock, Verizon, Chevron Corporation, and then a few other very large names that you've most likely heard of before that make up a large portion of the portfolio. For those of you who are watching this after October 10th, you'll notice that the share price for SCHD is a little bit lower than what you saw earlier in the video, and that's because they did a 3-for-1 share split, which means for every one share that you owned, you would now own 3, and this just lowers the overall price and increases the number of shares, but nothing changes about the underlying equity. And finally, you're probably wondering how much you need to own of SCHD to make $2,500 per month. So I made a calculator here that will show you that exact number. It's going to be $867,052.02. All you're doing is taking the dividend yield and you're going to divide that by the total amount that you'd want to make throughout the entire year, which ends up being $30,000 in this case scenario. DGRO is iShares Core Dividend Growth ETF, and as you can see right here, the year-to-date return is 17.72%, but let's look into what DGRO actually has to offer. They offer a low-cost exposure to U.S. stocks focused on dividend growth, access to companies that have a history of sustained dividend growth that are broadly diversified across industries, and it's designed to be used as a core portion of your portfolio to seek income. So this is more designed for someone who's looking to have that passive income as they enter retirement. As you can see here, DGRO has a slightly lower dividend yield than SCHD did, and it's sitting at 2.2%, but it also has a very impressive dividend growth over the last 5 years, sitting at an average increase of 10.18%, and they've also been increasing their dividend for the last 9 years. Just to take a brief look at DGRO's overall performance over the last 5 years, they're up almost 61%, which is over an 11 or 12% gain every single year. And this year, or in the last 365 days, DGRO is up just under 28%. And then obviously year to date, we saw earlier, which is up around 17%. When it comes to overall diversification with DGRO, it's going to look very similar to a lot of the ETFs that do pay dividends. You're seeing about 18% in financials, 16% in healthcare, 16% in information technology, and 12% in industrials. And if we look at some of their larger holdings, you'll notice some names that you definitely know, such as ExxonMobil, Microsoft, Apple, JP Morgan Chase, and Chevron Corporation. And finally, if you wanted to use DGRO as passive income for retirement to make $2,500 a month at 2.2%, you would need $1.36 million, which is a lot more than you saw with SCHD. Before we look at this last ETF, if you want to support the channel, make sure to smash the subscribe button, because for every new subscriber that we gain, we're investing $3 into a brand new account just to show you that being consistent with investing does really help you in the long run. So make sure to click that, but let's take a look at that last ETF. Final ETF we'll be taking a look at is VIG, and this is Vanguard's Dividend Appreciation ETF. If we look at the product summary, we'll see that this is designed to track the S&P US Dividend Growers Index. It's passively managed, all of the funds remain fully invested, and it is a large cap equity emphasizing in stocks with a record of growing their dividends year over year. And then the last point here is that it has very low expenses, and you can see that it has an expense ratio of 0.06%. So for every $10,000 you have invested, you'll only be paying $6 in fees every year. Now, VIG has a very impressive dividend record, has a dividend yield sitting at 1.73%, and over the last 5 years has an average dividend growth rate of 10.19% and has a dividend growth streak of 10 years. Now, for the average share price of VIG, we've actually seen some very impressive price appreciation as well, and that has been 65.73% over the last 5 years. Over the last 365 days, it's up over 27%, and year to date, it's up still 15.74%. So you're seeing some very impressive growth in the overall share price, and that's due to the slightly lower dividend yield of the 1.73%. So when it comes to diversification through VIG, you're going to see slightly different weights compared to the other two ETFs we've taken a look at, where they're heavily weighted 23% in information technology and then 20% in financials. Also, if we look at their largest holdings, we'll see some companies that we all know, such as Apple, Broadcom, Microsoft, JP Morgan Chase, and UNH United Healthcare Group. And finally, if you want to know how much you would need to have invested just into VIG, having a 1.73% dividend yield to make $2,500 per month, this will be the largest number you see out of these three at $1.734 million just to be making $2,500 a month. Now, when it comes to dividend investing, the best thing that you can possibly do is smash the subscribe button. Obviously, I'm just kidding. The best thing you can really do is continue to buy more and more shares and just consistently add to your position. As a dividend investor, you're really trying to receive that passive income and get paid for doing absolutely nothing. And the more shares that you own, the more money that you're going to get paid. So if you buy it at the top, if you buy at the bottom, you're still going to be receiving that passive income. If you are interested in seeing the different passive income that I have received on this account where I'm expected to make just under $1,000 by the end of 2024, make sure to go check out this video where I go over all the dividends that I received during the month of September.